The Art of Impossible by Steven Kotler. Have you ever experienced one of those rare moments when everything just clicks? When you're so locked in that the chaos around you fades to nothing? A moment where you and what you're doing become completely intertwined, time does something weird, and suddenly you're operating at a level that surprises even yourself? For Steven Kotler, that moment literally saved his life. Picture this. Early 30s, and Kotler's trapped in his own body. Lyme disease had basically hijacked his entire existence for 3 brutal years. He spent most of that time in bed. Walking across a room felt like climbing a mountain. His once sharp mind was drowning in what he describes as brain fog. His memory had abandoned him, focusing on anything was impossible, and a suffocating depression had moved in. He was standing at the edge, genuinely contemplating whether life was worth continuing. Then a stubborn friend, the kind who doesn't understand the word no, physically dragged him out to go surfing. Absurd, right? The guy could barely walk, and someone wants him to ride waves. But he agreed, thinking to himself, well, I can always kill myself tomorrow. He paddled out into these gentle waves, and what unfolded next was absolutely wild. As he caught a small wave, reality shifted. Time stretched out like taffy. His identity, this sick, exhausted, broken version of himself, just evaporated. He felt intimately connected to the ocean, to everything. And for the first time in forever, the pain disappeared, his mind cleared, he felt powerful. That single wave cracked open a door to another dimension of human experience. It was so profound, so utterly transformative, that it launched him on a decades-long mission to understand it. At the time he had no idea, but he'd accidentally stumbled into what scientists call flow. And this question started burning in his mind. If this state could resurrect him from near death back to normal, what could it do for someone who's already functioning? Could it transform an average person into someone extraordinary? This question pulses at the heart of Steven Kotler's book, The Art of Impossible. This isn't your typical motivational fluff about peak performance. It's an actual playbook for people with wild ambitions and dreams that make others uncomfortable. It makes this audacious claim. Achieving the impossible isn't some mystical magic trick. It's a formula. A formula grounded in hard science and brain biology, not fairy tales. Today, we're cracking open that formula. We're diving into 4 essential skills that, when you learn them and stack them together like building blocks, can help you obliterate your perceived limits and accomplish things you currently think are fantasy. By the time we're done, you'll understand how to make your own biology your greatest ally instead of your enemy, and you'll walk away with an actual roadmap for tackling your version of the impossible. So let's dive in. The journey into impossible territory often begins with something simple, a spark that catches your attention. For Steven Kotler, it happened when he was just 9 years old, watching his 7-year-old brother perform a magic trick. His brother dropped a tiny red sponge ball into his closed fist, asked their mom to blow on it, and when he opened his hand, nothing. The ball had vanished into thin air. For a 9-year-old brain, this was mind-bending. But here's what really stuck with him. He knew his little brother wasn't actually magical. That was a certainty. So if it wasn't magic, it had to be something else. A learnable skill. A process. A formula you could reverse engineer. This single insight, that impossible things have formulas, became the engine driving Kotler's entire life. He spent his childhood obsessed with magic, discovering that every seemingly supernatural trick had a perfectly logical explanation when you look behind the curtain. Years later, as a journalist covering extreme sports, he watched the pattern repeat itself. He saw skiers, surfers, and snowboarders, many from tough backgrounds with zero traditional advantages, consistently redefine what the human body could actually do. They were accomplishing feats that experts had declared physically impossible just months earlier. They weren't magical either, they'd simply cracked the code. Kotler spent decades hunting this formula across every domain you can imagine: technology, business, arts, sciences. And here's what emerged. Whenever impossible transforms into possible, it's because a specific set of skills were expertly deployed. These skills form the pillars of peak performance: motivation, learning, creativity, and flow. Think of it like launching a rocket into space. You can't just light something on fire and hope gravity gives up. You need the right fuel mixture, a guidance system, the ability to improvise when systems fail, and a powerful engine to break free of Earth's pull. The first and most fundamental piece of this puzzle is motivation. It's your fuel source. But here's where most people get it wrong. When we think about motivation, we usually imagine willpower or grit, that ability to keep grinding when everything sucks. Kotler argues this is backwards thinking. Relying purely on grit is like trying to move your car by pushing it from behind. Sure, you'll move, but you'll exhaust yourself and barely make it down the street. The real secret is tapping into our brain's premium, high-octane fuel sources, our intrinsic drivers. These are powerful emotional forces: curiosity, passion, purpose. When these align properly, hard work stops feeling like torture. It starts feeling like play. This is what Kotler calls the passion recipe. It starts with curiosity. Here's the thing. Don't torture yourself searching for your one true passion. That's unnecessary pressure. Instead, just write down 25 things that make you curious. Not huge, vague concepts like science, but specific stuff, like how octopuses change color to communicate, or why medieval castles had spiral staircases. Next, hunt for intersections. Where do 2, 3, maybe 4 of your curiosities overlap? Maybe you're fascinated by artificial intelligence, Stoic philosophy, and mythology. The intersection might be exploring how I could generate modern parables based on ancient wisdom. When you discover these intersections, something magical happens in your brain. It starts recognizing patterns, linking ideas together. And every single time it spots a pattern, it rewards you with a dopamine hit, a neurochemical that feels amazing, sharpens your focus, and makes you hungry for more. This is how passion is born, at a biological level. It's not a lightning strike from the universe. It's a fire you learn to build yourself. Once you've identified these intersections, you play in them. Commit just 20 to 30 minutes daily to exploring articles, videos, podcasts, whatever. There's zero pressure to become an expert overnight. You're just feeding your curiosity. As you do this consistently, you'll naturally develop your own perspectives and ideas. This naturally flows into the next step: go public. This doesn't mean booking a keynote speech at a conference. It just means talking about your ideas with actual humans, friends, family, that interesting stranger at the coffee shop. When someone responds positively to your ideas, your brain doesn't just release more dopamine, it adds oxytocin, the bonding neurochemical. This social validation is incredibly powerful. It confirms you're onto something real and intensifies your desire to learn more. But passion, as powerful as it is, can become self-centered. To truly unlock peak performance territory, you need to connect your passion to something bigger than yourself. This is the ultimate ingredient: purpose. You transform passion into purpose by asking this question: what massive problem in the world makes me genuinely angry that it still exists? Make a list of these problems, things that truly bother you, like ocean pollution, educational inequality, or mental health stigma. Then find the sweet spot, where your personal passion could actually help solve one of these collective problems. Maybe your passion for urban gardening and community building could become a mission to address food deserts in your city. This is what Kotler calls a massively transformative purpose, or an MTP. An MTP is a huge, audacious goal that acts like a North Star for your entire life. It provides a profound why that powers you through the inevitable moments when everything feels impossible. With this motivational foundation built, you add 2 more drivers to the stack: autonomy and mastery. Autonomy is the freedom to chase your purpose using your own methods. It's the desire to captain your own ship. Mastery is the drive to actually get better at steering that ship. We're biologically wired to crave progress. Every tiny win, every small improvement, triggers another dopamine release, creating this beautiful self-sustaining motivation cycle that we experience as momentum. So here's your complete motivation stack. Follow your curiosity into passion. Anchor it to a purpose. Demand autonomy to pursue that purpose. Then relentlessly chase mastery of the required skills. When these 5 intrinsic drivers align properly, you've built a powerful engine that carries you forward with dramatically less effort than grinding through on willpower alone. But motivation is just the launch pad. The road to impossible achievements is long and filled with obstacles you can't even imagine yet. To navigate it successfully, you need the second pillar, learning. To accomplish something truly remarkable, you need to develop genuine expertise. But in our information-flooded world, how do you actually learn effectively? Kotler offers a 5-step process for mastering almost anything. It starts with a simple, almost counterintuitive principle. Give yourself permission to feel stupid. Learning something new is frustrating. That's the point. That frustration is actually your brain producing norepinephrine, a neurochemical that primes your neural networks for learning. So here's step 1. Read 5 books on your chosen subject. Book 1 should be the most popular bestseller you can find. Your only goal here is getting excited and familiar with how people in this field talk. Book 2 is another popular book, but slightly more focused on your specific interest area. Book 3 is your first semi-technical book, still readable for mortals, but diving deeper into meaningful details. Book 4 is a genuinely difficult book, the kind that actual experts in this field are reading and discussing. Book 5 explores the future of this topic. Where's the cutting edge heading? As you work through these 5 books, you're not trying to memorize every detail. You're just noting 3 things: the historical narrative of the subject, key terminology that keeps appearing, and anything that genuinely excites you or triggers questions in your mind. After finishing your 5 books, step 2 is simple. Be the idiot. Find experts in the field and ask them your questions. Don't pretend to know more than you do. Your goal is learning, and the fastest path there is humility combined with curiosity. Step 3 is exploring the gaps. As you talk to experts, you'll start noticing questions they're not asking, the blank spaces on the map between different fields of knowledge. This is where genuine innovation lives. You start connecting ideas from separate domains, spotting relationships that specialists miss. Step 4 is always asking the next question. Seek out experts who completely disagree with the ones you've already consulted. Real understanding doesn't come from confirming your existing beliefs. It comes from having those beliefs thoroughly challenged, then figuring out where truth actually lives. And finally, step 5 is finding the narrative. The only real test of whether you've learned something is trying to explain it to someone else as a story. First, tell it to someone who knows absolutely nothing about the subject. If you can hold their attention and make them understand, you're halfway there. Then tell it to an expert. If they can't punch major holes in your explanation, you've earned your understanding. This process isn't just for learning subjects. It works for acquiring skills too. Here, Kotler draws on Tim Ferriss's work with the 80/20 rule. The concept is that 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. When learning a new skill, like guitar, don't try mastering everything simultaneously. Identify the core components, like the 4 or 5 chords that appear in most popular songs, and master those first. This gives you maximum leverage and dramatically accelerates your progress. With your motivation dialed in and your learning process optimized, you can now tackle the third pillar, creativity. If motivation is fuel and learning is your map, creativity is how you steer through unknown territory. When you're chasing impossible goals, there's no established path. You have to invent the road as you travel it. For a long time, we thought creativity was some mysterious gift from the heavens, or that it lived exclusively in the right side of the brain. Modern neuroscience has demolished that myth. Creativity is a whole brain phenomenon. It emerges when three key neural networks collaborate: the executive attention network, the imagination network, and the salience network. Think of the executive attention network as a spotlight. It lets you focus intensely on a specific problem. The imagination network, also called the default mode network, is your daydreaming mind. It activates when you're not focused on anything particular, and it's responsible for connecting distant ideas and simulating possibilities. The salience network is the switchboard operator. It monitors both your internal and external worlds, deciding what deserves attention. It's what lets your brain toggle between focused attention and imaginative wandering. In most people, the attention and imagination networks work in opposition. When one switches on, the other switches off. But highly creative people can keep both networks active simultaneously, allowing them to focus sharply on a problem while generating wild, unconventional solutions. So how do you train your brain for enhanced creativity? Kotler offers 7 practical hacks. One of the most powerful is befriending your mood. When you're in a good mood, your brain becomes more receptive to weak, unusual signals from your imagination network. This explains why a simple gratitude practice, regular exercise, or even watching a funny video can dramatically boost your creative problem solving. Another hack is thinking inside the box. We're constantly told to think outside the box, but creativity actually thrives on constraints. A blank page is paralyzing. But if you impose a few rules, like writing a story using only 10 specific words, your brain is forced to forge novel connections. A third hack is what Kotler calls the MacGyver method. When you're stuck on a problem, write it down in detail. Then step completely away and do something lightly stimulating that doesn't demand mental effort, like walking, showering, or washing dishes. This lets your conscious mind relax while your powerful subconscious goes to work. When you return to the problem later, solutions often just materialize. All these pillars, motivation, learning, and creativity, are essential, but they all lead to and are dramatically amplified by the fourth and final pillar, flow. Flow is the ultimate engine for impossible achievements. It's that optimal state of consciousness where you feel your absolute best and perform at your peak. Kotler describes it as the source code of intrinsic motivation, and the science strongly supports this. In flow states, productivity can spike by up to 500%, creativity skyrockets, and learning accelerates dramatically, with some research showing it can cut mastery time in half. So what's actually happening in your brain during flow? It's something called transient hypofrontality. Transient means temporary, and hypofrontality means a quieting of the prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for your sense of self, your inner critic, and your perception of time. To conserve energy for the intense focus the task demands, your brain temporarily shuts down these non-essential functions. Your nagging self-doubt voice goes silent. Your perception of time distorts, and your feeling of being a separate self dissolves as you merge completely with the activity. This combines with a powerful cocktail of performance-enhancing neurochemicals like dopamine, norepinephrine, and endorphins. The result is effortless action, profound concentration, and deep enjoyment. But you can't just flip a switch and enter flow on command. You have to engineer the right conditions. These conditions are called flow triggers. There are 22 known triggers, but they all work by driving your attention forcefully into the present moment. We've already discussed many of them. The entire intrinsic motivation stack, curiosity, passion, purpose, autonomy, and mastery, are all powerful flow triggers. Clear goals and immediate feedback are others. One of the most critical triggers is the challenge skills balance. Flow happens in that sweet spot where a task stretches your abilities just enough, but doesn't push so hard it creates anxiety and overwhelm. The magic number, Kotler suggests, is roughly 4% beyond your current skill level. You want to stretch yourself, not snap. Finally, it's crucial understanding that flow isn't a single state, but a 4-stage cycle. Struggle, This is the frustrating loading phase where you're learning and flooding your brain with information. It feels terrible, but it's absolutely necessary. Release. This is where you step away from the problem and let your subconscious take over. You take that walk, that shower. Flow. If you've struggled sufficiently and released properly, you can now drop into the actual flow state. This is the peak experience. Recovery. Flow is energy expensive. Afterward, your brain and body need time to recharge and consolidate learning. This is where active recovery like stretching or mindfulness, and especially sleep, become critical. You can't skip any of these stages, and you can't live permanently in flow. But by understanding this cycle, you can navigate it more efficiently, maximizing your time in the zone and minimizing the frustration of struggle. This, then, is the art of impossible. It's not a single heroic act, but a system of repeatable habits. It's about building a life where your motivation is intrinsic, your learning is constant, your creativity is a daily practice, and your ability to access flow becomes natural. Peter Diamandis, founder of the XPRIZE, once set out to do something everyone declared impossible: create a reusable private spaceship. From the outside, it looked monumentally difficult, but up close, what did it actually look like? It looked like waking up, typing on a computer, having conversations, catching flights, and going to the gym. And repeating that sequence, day after day. The impossible, Kotler reminds us, is always just a checklist. You complete everything on your checklist today, you complete everything on your checklist tomorrow, and you repeat. And one day, you look up and realize you've accomplished what everyone, including yourself, once thought was completely impossible. Steven Kotler's The Art of Impossible is more than just another book. It's essentially a user manual for optimizing human potential. What strikes me as particularly powerful about its message, especially for someone standing at the threshold of so many possibilities, is how it demystifies greatness. It yanks the idea of genius or talent off its pedestal and reveals that extraordinary performance is actually a learnable skill. It's a process you can study and practice, not a genetic lottery ticket. The most profound insight for me is this idea that our biology isn't our destiny, it's our toolkit. That frustration you feel when struggling to learn something new isn't a signal to quit, it's the sensation of your brain preparing itself for a breakthrough. Those daydreams you have aren't wasted time, they're your imagination network searching for creative solutions. That deep satisfaction from mastering a small skill isn't just a nice feeling. It's a dopamine reward system literally begging you to keep going. This book completely reframes what it means to strive for something difficult. It teaches you to listen to your body and brain not as obstacles but as guides. It gives you permission to follow your weirdest curiosities, because that's genuinely where passion begins. It encourages you to dream absurdly big, not as fantasy, but as a method for creating a purpose so compelling it pulls you through the hardest days. If I could give you one simple action to take from this book, it would be this: start your curiosity list right now. Grab a notebook and write down 25 things you're genuinely curious about, no matter how small or strange they seem. This isn't about discovering your life's purpose by tomorrow morning. It's about starting the engine. It's about honoring that quiet, persistent inner voice that wonders, what if? Because according to Kotler, that's the first step on every impossible journey. Everything else is just following the formula, one day at a time. That was a summary of The Art of Impossible by Steven Kotler. We've covered the core framework today, but let me be honest with you. A summary can only ever be a map. The real treasure reveals itself when you make the journey yourself. The true magic happens in those quiet reading moments, when a particular story or simple phrase connects with you in an unexpected way. This summary is a starting point, designed to help you decide if this book deserves your time. If anything we've explored today has sparked something in you, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning, it's an experience that can genuinely transform how you see your own potential. The link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you found this journey valuable, Please support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another transformative book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep growing together.